Billionaire invited his poor ex-wife to shame her. She arrived in a private jet with his secret twins. The ballroom went silent. Not the kind of silence that comes from respect, but the kind that comes from shock. Every champagne glass froze mid-air. Every conversation died on perfectly glossed lips. And Garrett Blackwell, Chicago's golden billionaire, stood there watching. His entire world collapse in the span of a single heartbeat. "These are your sons, Garrett," Brielle said, her voice steady as steel. "The ones you said didn't exist." Two identical 3-year-old boys stood beside her, their eyes the same piercing blue as the man who'd abandoned them. The resemblance was undeniable, devastating, impossible to explain away. Tessa Vanderbilt, the senator's daughter draped in diamonds and delusion, turned to him with mascara already streaking down her face. "You told me she lost the babies. You told me she was lying." Garrett's mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time in his life, the man who'd built an empire on silver-tongued promises had nothing to say. And then the screens behind him flickered, changed. Financial records filled the massive displays. Offshore accounts, falsified charity reports. 3 years of fraud laid bare for every camera, every guest, every person who'd ever believed he was untouchable. "You wanted to shame me tonight," Brielle continued, stepping closer. "You invited me here to parade my poverty in front of Chicago's elite, to make me feel small, to remind me what I lost." She paused, letting the weight of her next words settle over the room like snow. "But the only person being exposed tonight is you." Federal agents entered through the double doors. The click of handcuffs echoed across marble floors. And as they read Garrett Blackwell his rights, the woman he'd tried to erase stood tall, surrounded by the truth he could no longer deny. "But before I tell you how we got here, before I show you the moment justice finally caught up with a man who thought he was above consequences, you need to understand something. This story isn't really about revenge. It's about a woman who was told she was nothing and decided to prove that nothing can become everything when you refuse to disappear. Have you ever been discarded by someone who promised you forever? Have you ever been told to stay quiet, stay small, stay invisible while the person who destroyed you lives large? Have you ever wondered what would happen if you stopped accepting their narrative and started writing your own? This is that story, and I promise you, you won't see the ending coming. Stick with me, because what you're about to hear is about a billionaire who thought he could erase a woman like she never existed, about the twins he abandoned in a hospital, about 3 years of survival that became a masterclass in silent strength, and about the night she walked back into his world, not begging, not broken, but flying above him in ways he could never reach. Now, before we dive in, I need something from you. If you love stories about underdogs who rise up and make the powerful pay, hit that like button right now. Seriously, just tap it and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, or just say, "I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline." Let's build this community together, because trust me, this story is about to take you on a ride. All right, let's go back to where it all started, to a night when rain hammered against the windows of Chicago's most expensive tower, and a woman's life shattered like glass. Rain fell in sheets that November night, turning Michigan Avenue into a river of brake lights and broken reflections. Inside the Blackwell Tower, 63 floors above the chaos, everything gleamed. Polished marble, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that cost more than most people's annual salary. And at the center of it all stood Garrett Blackwell, a man who wore wealth like armor and wielded charm like a weapon. Brielle Hayes stood across from him, her hand instinctively resting on the small swell beneath her winter coat. 6 months pregnant with twins she hadn't planned, but already loved more than her next breath. "You've become a liability," Garrett said. His voice was smooth, controlled. The same voice that had once whispered promises into her hair now delivered. Her execution, with the emotion of a quarterly earnings report. Brielle felt her throat tighten. "A liability. The merger with Vanderbilt Industries depends on my image," he continued, moving to the bar cart to pour himself 2 fingers of bourbon. Clean, stable, unmarried to complications. The word hit her like a slap. "Complications? Garrett, I'm carrying your children." He glanced at his Patek Philippe watch, the one she'd given him for their first anniversary, back when she still believed expensive gifts could translate to love. "You say that, but we both know you were seeing other people before we separated." The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. "That's not true," she whispered. "You know that's not true." Garrett turned, backlit by the city lights, looking every bit the god he believed himself to be. What I know is that the board needs confidence, and confidence doesn't come from tabloid stories about pregnant ex-wives making claims. He slid a folder across his mahogany desk. Sign the NDA. You'll receive a one-time payment, $50,000. Enough to disappear quietly. Brielle stared at the papers. Her vision blurred. And if I refuse? His smile was sharp enough to draw blood. Then I'll make sure every door in this city closes in your face. No job, no apartment, no future. You'll be a cautionary tale people tell at cocktail parties. He took a sip of his bourbon. The unstable woman who tried to trap Garrett Blackwell. Thunder rolled across Lake Michigan. The windows rattled. Somewhere in the building, a clock chimed 10. Brielle looked at the man she'd married 4 years ago. The man who'd gotten down on one knee at Navy Pier and promised her the world. The man who now looked at her like she was something he'd stepped in on his way to greatness. I won't sign, she said quietly. Garrett's expression darkened. Then you'll regret it. She wanted to scream, to throw his words back in his face, to remind him of every promise he'd made. But her babies kicked tiny fists against her ribs, and she remembered who she was fighting for. I'm already living with regret, she said. His name is Garrett Blackwell. She turned toward the door, her cheap coat suddenly feeling like the most honest thing in the room. Brielle, he called after her. She paused. Don't come back. Don't call. Don't exist in my world anymore. Are we clear? She didn't answer. She just walked out, the sound of her footsteps swallowed by expensive carpeting. The elevator ride down felt like falling. 63 floors of descent, watching the numbers drop like her life unraveling in reverse. When the doors opened to the lobby, the doorman looked at her with something like pity. Do you need a cab, Miss Hayes? She shook her head. She couldn't afford a cab. She could barely afford the bus. Outside, November rain hit her face like tiny knives. The city that had once felt like home now felt hostile. Every lit window mocked her. Every warm restaurant full of laughing people reminded her of what she'd lost. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Final warning. Sign the papers or suffer the consequences. Brielle stood on the corner of Michigan and Randolph, rain soaking through her coat, and made a decision that would define the next 3 years of her life. She wouldn't sign. She wouldn't disappear. She would survive, even if it killed her. But I need to take you back further, because you can't understand how she survived without understanding who she was before Garrett Blackwell tried to erase her. 4 years earlier, Brielle Hayes was serving champagne at the Chicago Children's Hospital Gala. She wasn't a guest. She was staff, invisible in black pants and a white shirt, carrying silver trays through crowds of people who looked through her like she was air. She didn't mind. The job paid her rent. And honestly, she liked watching people celebrate for a good cause, even if she'd never be one of them. That's when Garrett Blackwell noticed her. Not because she was the most beautiful woman in the room, though she was lovely in an understated way, but because she smiled at an elderly man struggling with his wine glass, and spent 5 minutes helping him even though it wasn't her job. You're kind, Garrett said, appearing beside her at the bar. She looked up, startled. She recognized him from the program. Keynote speaker, youngest CEO in Blackwell Industries history, net worth north of $200 million. I'm just doing my job, she said. No, he replied, his blue eyes holding hers. Kindness is never just a job. And just like that, she was hooked. Their first date was coffee at a place in Wicker Park where he insisted on trying her favorite instead of his usual espresso. Their second date was walking the Riverwalk at sunset. By the third date, he'd told her she made him want to be better. Everyone in my world wants something from me, he'd said. But you just want me. It was the most romantic lie she'd ever believed. 6 months later, he proposed at Navy Pier. Got down on one knee with a 4-carat emerald-cut diamond while fireworks exploded over the lake. Brielle Hayes, he said, you make me believe in love. Marry me. She said yes through happy tears, never noticing the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes, never questioning why his family didn't attend the small wedding, never wondering why he kept her separate from his business life. Love, she would later learn, makes you blind to red flags the size of buildings. The first year of marriage was good, or at least it looked good. Garrett worked late, traveled often, but when he was home, he was attentive, generous. He bought her gifts, took her to expensive restaurants, introduced her as my wife with what seemed like pride. But slowly, subtly, things changed. He started critiquing her clothes. "You're a Blackwell now. You should dress the part." Then her friends, "They're holding you back, Brielle. You need to evolve." Then her job at the magazine where she worked as an editorial assistant. "You don't need to work. It's embarrassing. What will people think?" By year 2, she'd quit her job, distanced herself from friends, and built her entire world around Garrett Blackwell, which meant when he decided to destroy her, she had nothing to fall back on. The pregnancy happened in year 3. Unplanned, but not unwelcome. She thought maybe a baby would bring them closer. Instead, it became the excuse he needed to cut her loose. "I'm not ready," he'd said when she told him. "But we're married," she replied. "That was a mistake," he said. And just like that, 3 years of her life became a mistake. The divorce was quiet, quick. He had lawyers who could make anything happen. She had hoped that somehow they'd work it out. That hope died the night she told him she was pregnant with twins. "They're not mine," he said flatly. "Garrett, I've never been with anyone else. Prove it." So she did. She got the paternity test, paid for it with money she didn't have, brought him the results. He glanced at them and shrugged. Documents can be faked. That's when she understood. The truth didn't matter to Garrett Blackwell. Control did. And a pregnant ex-wife with legitimate children threatened his carefully constructed image. So, he did what powerful men do. He erased her. The morning after she refused to sign the NDA, Brielle woke up to 17 missed calls. Her boss at the magazine where she'd recently started freelancing again. Her landlord. Her bank. The first call she returned was to her editor, a woman named Patricia who'd always been kind. "Brielle, I'm so sorry," Patricia said. "But we received some concerning information about your conduct. We have to let you go." "What information?" "I can't discuss it." "I'm sorry." The line went dead. The second call was her landlord. "Miss Hayes, I'm going to need you to vacate the premises within 30 days. "What? Why?" "I've never been late on rent. The building is being converted to condos. All tenants must leave." It was a lie. She found out later Garrett had paid him $20,000 to evict her. The third call was her bank. "Miss Hayes, your account has been flagged for suspicious activity. All funds are temporarily frozen pending investigation." There was no investigation, just Garrett's lawyers making calls. By noon, her entire life had been systematically dismantled. Friends stopped answering her texts. The women she'd met through Garrett's social circle blocked her number. Her name became poison. She searched herself online. Found articles planted by his PR team. Garrett Blackwell's ex-wife accused of theft and fraud. Sources say she's unstable and made false pregnancy claims. None of it was true. All of it was believed. Because when you're rich enough, you don't just buy things. You buy truth. Brielle sat in her apartment that would soon no longer be hers, mourning, sickness churning in her stomach, and realized something important. Garrett didn't just want her gone. He wanted her destroyed. Erased so completely that if she ever spoke up, no one would believe her. But he made one mistake. He underestimated what a mother would do to protect her children. 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning that started like any other, everything changed. Brielle was on the number 77 bus heading to a job interview at a coffee shop in Lincoln Park. It wasn't much, but she needed income. Her savings were gone. Her apartment lease was up in a week. She'd found a studio in a questionable neighborhood that she could barely afford. That's when the contractions started. Sharp, sudden, stealing her breath. "Miss, you okay?" an elderly woman asked. Brielle shook her head. "I think I'm in labor." "But you're only 6 months along," the woman said, looking at Brielle's small bump. "I know. Someone called an ambulance." The bus driver pulled over, and Brielle Hayes found herself being rushed to County General Hospital, the only place that would take her without insurance. The fluorescent lights were harsh. The walls were beige and peeling. Machines beeped with urgency that felt both too fast and too slow. "We're doing everything we can," a young doctor said. "But the babies are premature. We need to prepare you for complications." Complications. That word again. Jackson arrived first, screaming, tiny fists raised like he was ready to fight the world. The nurse placed him on Brielle's chest for one precious moment before whisking him away to be examined. "You have a fighter," the nurse said, smiling. Then Aria came. Silent, blue, limp, Code blue, someone shouted. Machines swarmed. Hands moved with practiced efficiency. Brielle couldn't see her baby. Couldn't hear her cry. Is she alive? Brielle screamed. Is my baby alive? Time stretched. Seconds became hours. And then, finally, a thin, weak cry. She's breathing, the doctor said, but barely. She has a congenital heart defect. She needs surgery immediately. Hope and terror crashed into each other in Brielle's chest. Do it, she said. Whatever she needs, do it. The doctor's expression changed, became careful. Miss Hayes, without insurance authorization, we need payment up front. The surgery costs $82,000. The number crushed her. She had $847 in her checking account. I'll figure it out, she said. Just save her. We need the father's insurance authorization, or full payment. The father, Brielle laughed bitterly. The father says she's not his. The doctor looked at her with something like pity. I'm sorry, but we can't proceed without authorization. That night, while Jackson slept in a donated bassinet beside her hospital bed, and Aria fought for life behind NICU glass, Brielle called Garrett 18 times. 17 went to voicemail. On the 18th call, his assistant answered. Please, Brielle begged. I just need him to sign the insurance authorization. That's all. Aria needs heart surgery. She'll die without it. There was a pause. She could hear ice clinking in a glass in the background. Music, laughter. He was at a party. Miss Hayes, the assistant said, her voice rehearsed. Mr. Blackwell has instructed me to inform you that any further contact will be considered harassment and will be met with legal action. He is not responsible for children that are not his. Do not call again. The line went dead. Brielle sat in that hospital corridor, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of disinfectant burning her nose, and felt something inside her break. Not her spirit. That would take more than Garrett Blackwell could throw at her. No. What broke was the last piece of the woman who believed in fairness, in justice, in the idea that doing the right thing mattered. She pressed her forehead against the NICU glass, watching her daughter's tiny chest rise and fall with mechanical assistance, and made a promise. You will live, she whispered. Even if I have to sell everything I own, even if I have to beg, even if I have to burn every bridge and call in every favor, you will live. She didn't know it then, but someone was listening. The next morning, a nurse woke her from restless sleep on a waiting room chair. Miss Hayes. Brielle jolted awake. Is she okay? Is Aria okay? She's stable, the nurse said. But that's not why I'm here. Someone paid your bill. Brielle blinked. What? The entire amount. $82,000. An anonymous donation through the hospital's emergency fund. For a long moment, Brielle couldn't process the words. Who? Who would do that? The nurse shook her head. I can't say. Donor confidentiality. But the surgery is scheduled for this afternoon. Brielle started crying. Not delicate tears, but the kind of sobbing that comes from somewhere deep and broken. Relief and confusion and gratitude all twisted together. Can I know anything about them? Anything at all? The nurse hesitated. I shouldn't say this, but he sat in the observation area for an hour yesterday, just watching her. Then he left, and 2 hours later, the payment came through. He, a man, not Garrett. Someone else. Did he leave a name? I really can't say. But, she paused, glancing around. The visitor log had someone named R. Sterling. But that's all I know. R. Sterling. The name meant nothing to Brielle. But one day, it would mean everything. Aria's surgery took 6 hours. 6 hours of Brielle pacing the waiting room, Jackson sleeping against her chest, prayers she didn't believe in falling from her lips. When the surgeon emerged, she stood so fast she nearly dropped her baby. She made it, he said, and Brielle's knees buckled. A nurse caught her arm. Your daughter is a fighter, Miss Hayes. The repair went perfectly. She'll need follow-up care, but she's going to live. Brielle held Jackson tighter and whispered, We made it, baby. Your sister made it. 2 days later, she was discharged. 2 babies. No car, no crib, no plan. A social worker helped her apply for emergency housing assistance. A church donated a double stroller. The nurse who'd helped her that first night slipped her $200 in cash. For formula, she said. Pay it forward someday. Brielle took the bus to her new studio apartment in a neighborhood where gunshots were more common than birdsong. The heat didn't work. The locks were questionable, but it was hers. She set up a crib she'd bought from a thrift store for $35, hung a sheet over the window that didn't have blinds, made a bottle with the last of her formula. And as she sat in the dark, her baby sleeping finally, mercifully sleeping, she looked at the Chicago skyline through her cracked window. Somewhere out there, Garrett Blackwell was living his best life, attending galas, making deals, pretending she never existed. But she existed, and so did Jackson and Aria, and that was enough. For now. If you're still with me, I need you to understand something. This isn't just a story about a woman surviving. It's about what happens when survival becomes your superpower, when being underestimated becomes your greatest advantage. Because over the next 3 years, while Garrett built his empire higher, Brielle built something he could never buy. She built resilience. The first year was the hardest. There's no other way to say it. Brielle worked 2 jobs. Morning shift at a coffee shop in Wicker Park called The Grind. Night shift cleaning offices downtown for a company that paid cash and didn't ask questions. Her alarm went off at 4 a.m. every morning. She'd feed the twins, change them, dress them in clothes from the church donation bin. A neighbor, an elderly woman named Dolores, watched them during the day for $20 a week, which was all Brielle could afford. The coffee shop paid $9 an hour plus tips. On a good day, she'd make $60. On a bad day, $40. She'd finish at 3, take the bus home, spend 2 hours with Jackson and Aria, then leave for her cleaning shift at 6. She'd scrub toilets and empty trash bins and vacuum conference rooms until midnight. Then she'd take the bus home, sleep for 3 hours and do it all again. Her body existed in a state of permanent exhaustion. Her back ached. Her feet developed calluses on top of calluses. She lived on coffee and whatever free food she could get from the Grind's day-old pastry bin. But Jackson learned to crawl. Aria's heart grew stronger, and every small victory felt like winning the lottery. The bills, though, the bills never stopped. Hospital follow-ups for Aria, formula, diapers, rent, utilities. Every month was a calculation of which bill could be paid late and which absolutely couldn't. She learned to make a dollar stretch in ways she'd never imagined. Learned which grocery stores marked down produce at closing time. Learned that baby clothes could be washed and rewashed until they were more patch than original fabric. She learned that pride was expensive and she couldn't afford it. When the food pantry at St. Augustine's Church had a distribution day, she went. When the community center offered free diapers, she took them. When her coffee shop manager offered her extra shifts, she said yes even when her body screamed for rest. And through it all, she saw Garrett's face everywhere. On billboards advertising Blackwell Industries' new development project. On magazine covers. On the news talking about his charitable work. The irony of that last one burned. Garrett Blackwell, champion of children's causes. Garrett Blackwell, who'd left his own children to die. One night, about 8 months after the twins were born, Brielle was cleaning an office building on Wacker Drive. It was late, past midnight. The cleaning crew had left, but she'd volunteered to stay and finish the executive floor for extra pay. She was emptying a trash bin when she saw it. A discarded copy of Chicago magazine. And there on the cover was Garrett, smiling that smile she used to believe was real, standing next to a beautiful blonde woman. Garrett Blackwell announces engagement to Tessa Vanderbilt, daughter of Senator James Vanderbilt. Chicago's power couple makes it official. Brielle stood there, trash bag in one hand, magazine in the other, and something inside her cracked. Not broke. She was past breaking. It cracked open, and what came out wasn't tears. It was rage. Cold, clear, focused. He'd moved on. Found someone suitable. Someone from the right family with the right connections. Someone who would enhance his image instead of threatening it. And she was here at 1mm, cleaning his world's garbage. She wanted to scream, to throw something, to call him and tell him exactly what she thought. Instead, she carefully tore out the page with his photo, folded it, put it in her pocket. "You think you've won," she whispered to the empty office. But this isn't over. She didn't know what that meant yet, didn't have a plan. But the woman who'd once begged him for mercy was gone. In her place was someone harder. Someone who'd learned that the world doesn't reward kindness. It rewards strength. And she was getting stronger every day. At home, she pinned the magazine page to her wall. Not his shrine, As a reminder, every morning when she woke up exhausted, she'd look at it. Every night when she came home defeated, she'd see it. He wants me to disappear, she told herself, so I'll disappear. But ghosts have a way of coming back. By the time the twins turned 2, Brielle had paid off half of Aria's medical debt. It had required selling everything of value she still owned. Her engagement ring, her grandmother's necklace, the designer clothes from her old life. The pawn shop owner on Milwaukee Avenue knew her by name now. "What do you have for me today, Brielle?" He'd ask. She'd slide whatever she'd decided she could live without across the counter. He'd examine it, quote, a price that was always lower than it should be, and she'd take it because she had no choice. Her wedding ring was the last thing to go. She stood at the counter, staring at the gold band that had once symbolized forever, and felt nothing. It was just metal, just an object, and objects could be traded for things that mattered. "I can give you $800, the owner said. It had cost $40,000 when Garrett bought it. "Okay," she said. He counted out the bills. She put them in her wallet, walked out, went to the pharmacy and bought 3 months of Aria's heart medication. That night, she looked at her bare finger and smiled. She was free. Meanwhile, across the city in a penthouse that cost more per month than Brielle made in a year, Garrett Blackwell was planning his future. Tessa Vanderbilt was perfect, beautiful in that polished, expensive way, connected through her father's political network, smart enough to be interesting, but not so smart that she'd question him. "Darling, what do you think about an engagement party at the Drake?" she asked, scrolling through venues on her iPad. Garrett smiled. "Whatever you want, sweetheart. I was thinking we could make it a charity event, raise money for your foundation, show Chicago that we're not just about wealth, we're about giving back." Perfect. Exactly the kind of optics he needed for the Vanderbilt Industries merger. "Brilliant idea," he said. Tessa beamed. "Oh, and I saw we should invite some of your former associates, show there's no hard feelings, fresh starts and all that." "Like who?" "Well, I noticed you were once married, briefly, to a woman named Brielle Hayes." Garrett's smile tightened. "That was a mistake. She's not relevant anymore." "I know, but imagine the press, the magnanimous billionaire who's so secure in his success that he can extend an olive branch to his past. It would show incredible character." He considered it. The optics were good, and honestly, it would be satisfying to have Brielle see what she'd lost, to parade Tessa and his success in front of the woman who'd tried to trap him. "You know what? You're right. Let's invite her." "Really?" Tessa was surprised. "Sure. I mean, what's she going to do? Make a scene? She's probably working some minimum wage job, barely scraping by. It'll be a reminder to everyone what happens when you aim above your station." Tessa laughed. "Garrett, you're terrible." "I'm practical." He had no idea he'd just made the worst decision of his life. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Brielle was coming home from her morning shift, twins in their stroller, when she checked her mailbox. Junk mail, a bill, and a cream-colored envelope that was clearly expensive. She opened it standing right there in the building's dingy lobby. "You are cordially invited to celebrate the engagement of Garrett Blackwell and Tessa Vanderbilt. The Drake Hotel, black tie, November 7th. Her hands started shaking. Not from fear, from recognition. This wasn't an olive branch. It was a trap. She flipped the card over. On the back, handwritten in Garrett's distinctive scrawl, "Brielle, let's settle the past once and for all. Come alone. We have custody matters to discuss." Custody. He'd ignored his children's existence for 3 years. Never sent a dollar. Never asked about their health. Never acknowledged them. And now, on the eve of his engagement to a senator's daughter, he wanted to discuss custody. Brielle stood there, her babies babbling in their stroller, unaware that their father had just tried to threaten their mother. Her first instinct was rage. Her second was fear. Her third was calculation. If Garrett was bringing up custody, it meant he saw them as a liability. Maybe Tessa didn't know about them. Maybe he wanted Brielle to sign away any claim so he could marry into political royalty without complications. She could ignore the invitation, stay invisible, or she could walk into his trap and flip it on him. For 3 years, she'd survived by staying small. Maybe it was time to stand tall. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number she'd kept but never called. A number given to her by the hospital social worker. A number that belonged to someone who might be able to help. It rang 4 times. Then a voice answered, smooth and calm. This is Rowan Sterling. Brielle took a breath. Mr. Sterling, you don't know me, but my name is Brielle Hayes, and I think it's time we had a conversation about Garrett Blackwell. There was a pause. Then, I've been waiting 3 years for you to call. And just like that, everything changed. Rowan Sterling suggested they meet at a diner on the south side, somewhere far from the gleaming towers where Chicago's elite made their deals. Brielle arranged for Dolores to watch the twins and took 2 buses to get there. The diner was the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since morning, but it was warm and anonymous. Rowan was already there when she arrived. He didn't look like she'd expected. No designer suit, no flashy watch, just jeans and a dark sweater and eyes that looked like they'd seen their share of betrayal. Brielle Hayes, he said, standing as she approached. Thank you for coming. She slid into the booth across from him. You paid for my daughter's surgery. It wasn't a question. He nodded. I did. Why? Because I know what Garrett Blackwell does to people, and I couldn't let an innocent child die because of his ego. Brielle studied him. The social worker said you were a businessman, that you and Garrett had history. We were partners once, 10 years ago. I brought the vision, he brought the capital. We built Blackwell Industries together. Rowan's expression darkened. Then he forged my signature on documents that transferred my shares to him, spread rumors that I was embezzling, destroyed my reputation so thoroughly that I couldn't get a meeting anywhere in Chicago. Why didn't you fight back? I tried. But he had lawyers and money and connections. I had truth, and truth doesn't count for much when you're up against power. He took a sip of his coffee. So I disappeared, rebuilt quietly, and I've been watching him ever since, waiting for the right moment. Brielle felt something shift in her chest. And you think this is the right moment? Rowan pulled a folder from the bag beside him. For 3 years I've been documenting everything, financial records, offshore accounts, his foundation that's supposed to help children. It's a shell operation to launder money. I have proof. He slid the folder across the table. Brielle opened it. Page after page of bank statements, emails, transactions. This is fraud, she said quietly. Major fraud, the kind that gets federal attention. But I need one more piece to make it stick. I need access to his private server, the one in his office that has the original documents tying him directly to the transfers. And you need me to get that access. No, I need you to be a distraction while my team gets that access. Rowan leaned forward. He invited you to his engagement party. He thinks you're broken, desperate. He's expecting you to show up poor and pathetic so he can feel superior. What he won't expect is for you to walk in there and be the spark that burns his entire empire down. Brielle's heart was racing. If I do this, he'll come after me. With everything he has. He will, but this time, you won't be alone. Rowan's eyes held hers. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust that some things are worth the risk. She thought about Jackson and Aria, about 3 years of struggle, about every night she'd cried herself to sleep wondering how she'd make it to morning, about the woman she used to be and the woman she'd become. What do you need me to do? Rowan smiled. It was the first real smile she'd seen from him. Just be yourself, tell your truth, and let him destroy himself trying to deny it. They spent the next 2 hours planning. Rowan had a team, tech specialists, lawyers, people who'd been waiting for a chance to take down Garrett Blackwell. The engagement party will be full of press, politicians, investors. If the evidence goes public there, he won't be able to contain it. Rowan pulled out a schedule. He'll have a speech planned for 8:15. That's when we'll upload the files to the event's media servers. Every screen in that ballroom will show his crimes. And what do? You show up, you look him in the eye, and when he tries to dismiss you, you present proof he can't deny. What proof? Rowan pulled out 2 more documents. Paternity tests, updated and certified by an independent lab, and hospital records showing he was contacted multiple times about Aria's surgery and refused to help. Brielle stared at the papers. He'll say they're fake. Then you bring the twins. Her head snapped up. What? Brielle, he can lie about documents. He can't lie about 2 3-year-olds who look exactly like him. Rowan's expression was gentle but firm. I know it's asking a lot. I know you've protected them from this. But if you want to end this, if you want them to grow up without his shadow over them, they need to be visible. Just once. She felt tears burning. They're babies. They don't deserve to be part of this. No, they don't. But they're already part of it. He made sure of that when he denied them. Rowan reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. This isn't about revenge, Brielle. This is about making sure he can never hurt you or them again. She thought about Arya's surgery scar, about Jackson asking why they didn't have a daddy, about 3 years of living in fear that Garrett would show up and take them just to hurt her. Okay, she whispered. I'll do it. You're sure? She met his eyes. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. That night, back in her studio apartment, Brielle stood at the window watching the city lights. Jackson and Arya were asleep, their breathing soft and even. She'd spent 3 years invisible. 3 years silent. 3 years surviving. Maybe it was time to do more than survive. She pulled out her phone and looked at the invitation again. November 7th. 10 days away. 10 days to prepare, to get ready, to transform from the woman Garrett Blackwell had tried to erase into the woman who would destroy him. She opened her contacts and called the one person from her old life who might still help her. Her former roommate, Jade, who'd been Rowan Sterling's sister. That's how the social worker had gotten his number. Hello? Jade, it's Brielle. There was a pause. Brielle Hayes. Oh my God, I've been trying to find you for years. Rowan said you might call. I need help, Brielle said. I need to walk into the Drake Hotel in 10 days and look like I belong there. Can you help me? Jade didn't hesitate. Absolutely. When can you come over? And just like that, the pieces started falling into place. Over the next week, Brielle worked her shifts, cared for her babies, and planned the most important night of her life. Jade helped her find a dress. Nothing flashy. Navy blue, elegant. The kind of thing that whispered confidence instead of screaming for attention. You're not going there to impress him, Jade said as Brielle tried it on. You're going to remind him what he lost. The dress fit perfectly. Rowan's lawyer, a sharp woman named Bethany Torres, walked her through what to expect. He'll try to intimidate you, make you feel small. That's his pattern. Bethany handed her a folder. These are your documents, paternity results, hospital bills he refused to pay, medical records, every phone call you made that he ignored, every piece of evidence that proves you told the truth. Brielle took the folder with shaking hands. What if no one believes me? They will. Because unlike Garrett, you're not performing. You're just telling what happened. The night before the party, Brielle couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to her babies breathe. Tomorrow, she'd walk into a room full of people who'd believed Garrett's lies. Tomorrow, she'd face the man who'd tried to destroy her. Tomorrow, she'd risk everything. But she'd also survived everything. And survival, she'd learned, was its own kind of power. At 4 a.m., she got up and made coffee, sat at her tiny kitchen table and wrote a letter to her children that she hoped she'd never have to give them. My loves, if you're reading this, it means something went wrong tonight. It means I tried to fight for us and I lost. But I need you to know something. You are not mistakes. You are not complications. You are the best things that ever happened to me. And if the world tries to tell you otherwise, don't believe it. Your mother loved you enough to walk through fire. Never forget that. She sealed the letter, left it with Dolores just in case. Then she dressed in her navy gown, kissed her sleeping babies, and stepped out into the Chicago night. A car was waiting, not a cab, a Mercedes. Rowan had insisted. You're not arriving like someone who's desperate, he'd said. You're arriving like someone who has nothing left to lose. The driver opened the door. Miss Hayes, the Drake Hotel? She nodded, slid into the back seat. As the car glided through the city, she watched the streets pass, the same streets where she'd scraped and struggled and survived. Tonight, she was done scraping. Tonight, she'd stand. The Drake Hotel rose before her like a monument to old money and new power. Photographers lined the red carpet. Valets rushed to open doors. Every person entering looked like they belonged in a magazine. And then there was Brielle Hayes. No jewelry, no designer bag, just a thrift store dress and 3 years of truth. The driver opened her door. Good luck, miss. She stepped out. Cameras turned, not because they recognized her, but because something about the way she moved, shoulders back, chin up, eyes forward, demanded attention. She walked up the steps, through the doors, into the golden lobby, and the first person she saw was Garrett Blackwell, standing at the center of a crowd, champagne in hand, laughing at something a congressman said. He looked up. Their eyes met, and for just a second, she saw it. Fear, Then his expression smoothed into arrogance. He excused himself from the group and walked toward her. "Brielle," he said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. What an unexpected surprise. She smiled. "You invited me, Garrett, remember? To discuss custody." Around them, conversations dimmed. Heads turned. This was it. The moment everything changed. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," he said, his voice tight. "This isn't the place." "No," she replied, her voice carrying across marble floors. "This is exactly the place." And she reached into her purse and pulled out the first document. The paternity test. Updated. Certified. Undeniable. "These are your sons, Garrett," she said. "And tonight, everyone is going to know exactly what kind of father you are." His face went pale. The cameras started flashing. And somewhere in the back of the ballroom, Rowan Sterling smiled and gave the signal to his tech team. It was time to burn it all down. The paternity test felt like a weapon in Brielle's hands. Not heavy, just powerful. She held it up so the guests nearby could see the official seal, the laboratory certification. The results that left no room for doubt. "Jackson and Aria Blackwell," she said clearly. "Born January 14th, 3 years ago. Premature, twin A healthy, twin B, congenital heart defect requiring emergency surgery." Her voice didn't waver. Surgery that their father refused to authorize because acknowledging them would damage his image. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Phones appeared. The modern reflex. Document everything. Garrett's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You're making a scene." "No," Brielle replied. "I'm telling the truth." "There's a difference." A woman in an emerald gown leaned toward her companion. "Is she serious? Garrett has children?" "Apparently so," the man whispered back. Garrett held up his hands, playing to the crowd. That smile, the one that had gotten him everything he'd ever wanted. "Everyone, please, this is clearly a misunderstanding. Brielle and I were married briefly, yes, but these claims, these accusations, they're simply not true." "Then explain the DNA results," Brielle said. "Documents can be fabricated. Everyone knows that." He turned to address the gathering audience. "This woman has been harassing me for years, making false claims. My lawyers have repeatedly asked her to stop." Brielle felt the old fear trying to creep in. The fear that people would believe him, that money and charm would win over truth. But then she remembered 3 years of survival, 3 years of choosing her children over her pride, 3 years of becoming someone who didn't break. "You're right," she said. "Documents can be fabricated. That's why I brought something you can't fake." She pulled out her phone, opened her photo gallery, turned the screen toward the crowd. Jackson and Aria, 3 years old, blue eyes, dark hair, the same distinctive widow's peak that Garrett had, the same smile. A gasp went through the crowd. "Those children look exactly like him," someone said. Garrett's smile faltered. "Coincidence. Lots of children have blue eyes." "Not like yours," an older woman in the front said. "Young man, those are clearly your children." Tessa Vanderbilt chose that moment to appear, gliding through the crowd in a gown that probably cost more than Brielle's yearly rent. Beautiful, polished, perfect. "Darling," she said, linking her arm through Garrett's. "What's going on? Who is this?" Brielle looked at her. This woman who'd taken her place. This woman who had no idea what kind of man she was marrying. "I'm Brielle Hayes," she said gently. "Garrett's ex-wife and the mother of his children." Tessa's perfect smile froze. "What? No. Garrett, you said you didn't have children." "I don't," he insisted. "She's lying. Then why do those babies in the photo look exactly like you?" Tessa's voice rose. The cracks were showing. "Garrett, tell me she's lying." "Tessa, not here. Let's discuss this privately." "Not here?" Tessa pulled away from him. "You're being accused of abandoning your children at a party full of press and politicians, and you want to discuss it privately?" The crowd was growing. People abandoning their champagne and hors d'oeuvres to witness the drama unfolding. Brielle pulled out another document. Hospital records. January 14th. County General. Twin birth. Premature. Mother, Brielle Hayes. Father, she paused, listed as Garrett Blackwell. "You signed the admission forms, Garrett. You were there that night, drunk, demanding to see them. The nurse made you sign." His face went pale. He'd forgotten about that. The night he'd shown up at the hospital, Bourbon Brave, wanting to see if the children were really his. He'd signed the forms because they wouldn't let him in otherwise. "Those records are private," he hissed. "How did you get those?" "I'm their mother. I have every right to their medical records." She held them up. "And these records show every attempt I made to contact you. Every phone call, every message, every request for help when Arya needed surgery." "This is slander," Garrett said, but his voice lacked conviction. "This is documentation," Brielle corrected. "There's a difference." A reporter pushed forward. Brielle recognized him from the Chicago Tribune. "Miss Hayes, you're saying Garrett Blackwell abandoned his children?" Before she could answer, Garrett cut in. "Don't answer that. This is a private matter. You made it public when you invited me here," Brielle said. "You wanted to humiliate me in front of Chicago's elite. You wanted everyone to see how far I'd fallen. Well, here I am, but I'm not the one who should be ashamed." Tessa was crying now, mascara streaking. "You told me she was unstable. You told me she tried to trap you with a fake pregnancy." "She did," Garrett insisted. "Then explain the children who look like your clones." Tessa screamed. The polished senator's daughter was gone. In her place was a woman realizing she'd been lied to. "You made me defend you to my father, to the press. You made me believe she was some crazy Tessa, please, don't touch me." She backed away. "Don't you dare touch me." The crowd was murmuring louder now. Phones recording. This would be everywhere by morning. Garrett turned on Brielle, his mask fully dropping. "You're going to regret this." "No," a voice said from behind him. "You are." Everyone turned. Rowan Sterling stepped through the crowd, dressed simply, no tuxedo, just dark slacks and a dress shirt, but he carried himself with quiet authority that made people instinctively move aside. Garrett's eyes went wide. "You." "Hello, Garrett. It's been a long time. What are you doing here?" "I'm here," Rowan said calmly, "because Miss Hayes and her children are under my company's legal protection. Any attempt to harass, defame, or threaten them will result in immediate litigation." Garrett laughed, but it sounded nervous. "Legal protection? From you? You're nobody. I destroyed you." "You tried," Rowan acknowledged, "but I'm harder to destroy than you thought." A businessman in the crowd recognized him. "Sterling. Rowan Sterling. I thought you left Chicago." "I did. For a while. I've been rebuilding, quietly." Rowan turned to address the room. "I was Garrett's business partner 10 years ago, until he forged my signature, stole my shares, and spread lies that I was embezzling." He pulled out a folder. "I've spent the last 3 years documenting everything, and tonight seems like the perfect time to share it." Garrett lunged forward. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, I can." Rowan nodded to someone in the back. The ballroom's massive LED screens flickered. The romantic slideshow of Garrett and Tessa vanished. In its place appeared bank statements, email chains, offshore account transfers. The crowd gasped. "What you're seeing," Rowan announced, his voice carrying easily across the marble, "is 3 years of financial fraud. Garrett Blackwell has been embezzling from his own charitable foundation, the Blackwell Foundation for Children, which claims to help struggling families, is actually a shell operation to launder money through offshore accounts." The screens scrolled through evidence. Emails from Garrett to his accountant. "Bury the numbers. Move the funds through the charity wing. Make sure nothing traces back to me." Bank transfers. Millions of dollars flowing from the foundation to private accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Singapore. Donation records showing phantom donors. Companies that didn't exist. Contributions that never happened. "Oh my God," someone breathed. Tessa stared at the screens, her face white. "You used my father's name. You used his political connections to legitimize your charity." "Tessa, I can explain." "You used me," she said. "You used my family." A man in an expensive suit pushed forward. Brielle recognized him from the news. Harold Chen, head of the Securities and Exchange Commission. "Mr. Blackwell," he said formally, "I think we need to have a conversation." "This is all fake," Garrett said desperately. "They fabricated everything. You can't trust these documents." "We've already verified them," Chen replied. "My office received copies 3 days ago. We've been cross-referencing with federal banking records. Everything checks out." The room erupted. Reporters shouting questions. Guests backing away from Garrett like he was contagious. Camera flashes turning the ballroom into a lightning storm. Garrett looked around wildly. For the first time in his life, His charm couldn't save him. His money couldn't buy his way out. His lawyers weren't there to make it disappear. He was alone. "You planned this," he said to Brielle. "You and him. You set me up." "No," Brielle said quietly. "You set yourself up. We just held up a mirror." Security guards were moving through the crowd now. Not hotel security. Federal agents in dark suits with badges clipped to their belts. "Garrett Blackwell," the lead agent said. "We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of wire fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, and misuse of charitable funds." "This is insane." Garrett backed away. "I'm not going anywhere. Sir, you can come voluntarily, or we can make this difficult." Garrett looked at Tessa. Tell them I wouldn't do this." She turned away. "I don't know what you'd do anymore." He looked at the crowd, at the people who'd celebrated him an hour ago. "Someone help me. Anyone." No one moved. Because power, Brielle realized, was only real when people believed in it. And no one believed in Garrett Blackwell anymore. The agent approached with handcuffs. The sound of metal clicking shut echoed through the silent ballroom. "You have the right to remain silent," the agent began. Brielle watched them read him his rights. Watched them lead him toward the exit. And she felt something unexpected. Not triumph, not joy, just peace. As they passed her, Garrett stopped, turned. "This isn't over." She met his eyes. "Yes, Garrett, it is. I'll fight this. I'll beat it. And when I do, I'll take everything from you. You already took everything from me," she said softly. "I had to rebuild from nothing, which means I know how to survive anything, even you." The agent pulled him forward. "Let's go, Mr. Blackwell." As they led him through the ballroom, through the crowd that parted like he carried disease, someone started clapping. Then, another person. And another, not enthusiastic applause, not celebration, but acknowledgement, respect for a woman who'd stood up to power and won. Brielle felt tears burning her eyes. For 3 years she'd been invisible, and now an entire room was seeing her, really seeing her. Tessa approached, makeup ruined, diamond necklace glittering against her throat like a noose. "I'm sorry," she said. Brielle blinked. "What?" "I believed his lies about you. I thought you were trying to ruin him out of jealousy." Tessa's voice broke. "But you were telling the truth the whole time, and I helped him destroy your credibility. You didn't know." "I should have. I should have questioned why he was so defensive about you, why he got angry every time your name came up." Tessa pulled the engagement ring off her finger. "I hope your children are okay. They are. Despite everything, they're perfect." Tessa nodded, walked away, and Brielle knew she'd never see her again. Rowan appeared at her side. "You okay?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "There's a car waiting," he said gently. "Your children are probably wondering if Mommy really does look like a princess." She laughed through tears. "I need to get out of here." "Then let's go." But before they could leave, a reporter approached. The same woman from the Tribune. "Miss Hayes, can I ask you one question?" Brielle hesitated, then nodded. "What do you want people to take away from tonight?" Brielle thought about the question, about 3 years of struggle, about every night she'd wanted to give up and didn't, about Jackson and Arya sleeping safely at home. "That wealth doesn't make you powerful," she said finally. "Character does. And if a woman has to walk through hell to protect her children, then maybe hell should start being afraid of women." The reporter lowered her microphone, visibly moved. "Thank you." Rowan touched Brielle's elbow gently. "Ready?" She was. They walked through the ballroom together, past the screens still displaying Garrett's crimes, past the guests whispering about the most dramatic engagement party Chicago had ever seen, past the marble and crystal and expensive illusions. Outside, November air hit her face like freedom. Stars punched through light pollution, visible and defiant. The same stars that had watched her fall were now watching her rise. A Mercedes waited at the curb, but before she got in, Brielle turned back to look at the Drake Hotel, at the golden windows and perfect facades. For 3 years, she'd thought that building represented everything she'd lost. Now she realized it just represented everything she'd escaped. She slid into the car. Rowan climbed in beside her. "How do you feel?" he asked. Brielle considered the question. "Like I can finally breathe." As the car pulled away from the curb, leaving the chaos behind, she pulled out her phone. Dolores had sent a photo, Jackson and Arya, asleep on her couch, holding hands even in sleep. "I'm coming home, babies," she whispered. And for the first time in 3 years, home felt like a place she'd earned, not a place she was surviving, but a place she'd fought for and won. Now listen, if you're still with me, if you felt that moment when justice finally happened, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like, because we're not done yet. We still need to see what happens after the storm, after the cameras stop flashing and the headlines fade, after justice becomes just another day. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, or just say, "I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline," because the best part of this story isn't the revenge. It's what comes after. Stay with me. The media storm that followed was unlike anything Chicago had seen in years. By midnight, every news outlet in the city was running the story. Billionaire arrested at his own engagement party. Charity fraud exposed in dramatic confrontation. Ex-wife's revenge brings down Chicago Titan. But Brielle wasn't watching the news. She was home, holding her children, breathing them in like oxygen. "Mama, you're squishing us." Jackson giggled. "Sorry, baby. Mama just missed you." "You were only gone for 3 hours," Aria pointed out. Always the practical one. Felt like longer. Dolores made tea while Brielle got the twins ready for bed. Normal things. Ordinary things. The kind of things that felt miraculous after the night she'd had. "You did good, honey," Dolores said, handing her a steaming mug. "I saw it on the news. That man finally got what he deserved. I just told the truth. Sometimes that's the bravest thing you can do." After the twins were asleep, Brielle sat by the window and watched the city lights. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from reporters, friend requests from people she'd never met, interview requests from every talk show in America. She ignored them all. This wasn't about fame. It wasn't about her story becoming entertainment. It was about making sure her children could grow up without his shadow. At 2 a.m, Rowan called. "You should know," he said. "The FBI is expanding their investigation. They found evidence of fraud going back 8 years. He's looking at serious prison time." "How much?" 25 years. Maybe more. Brielle absorbed that. A quarter century. Her children would be grown by the time he got out. "How do you feel about that?" Rowan asked. "I don't know. Relieved, sad, both." She sighed. "I don't want to be the kind of person who celebrates someone going to prison." "You're not celebrating. You're just finally safe." "Yeah, I guess I am." "Get some sleep, Brielle. Tomorrow's going to be another circus." He was right. By morning, reporters were camped outside her building. Cameras, microphones, questions shouted through the cold air. "Miss Hayes, how does it feel to take down Garrett Blackwell? Will you write a book about your experience? Are you pursuing full custody of the twins?" Brielle didn't answer. She just kept her head down, got the twins to daycare through the back entrance, and went to work. Because bills didn't stop coming just because justice happened. The coffee shop was packed with people who suddenly recognized her. Whispers followed her from table to table. Her manager, a kind man named Tom, pulled her aside. "Listen, I know you're going through something. If you need time off." "I need to work," Brielle said. "I need normal." "Okay. But if it gets too much, you tell me." It got too much by noon when a customer took a photo of her making lattes and posted it online. With the caption, "The woman who destroyed Garrett Blackwell is working at a coffee shop. This is both inspiring and heartbreaking." The post went viral. By the end of her shift, someone had started a crowdfunding campaign. Help Brielle Hayes and her twins. By evening, it had raised $40,000. Brielle stared at the number on her phone, unable to process it. Strangers, people she'd never met, sending her money because her story touched them. She called Rowan. "I don't know what to do with this." "Accept it," he said simply. "People want to help. Let them." "But I didn't ask for charity." "It's not charity, it's solidarity. There are thousands of women who've been where you are, who've been told they're lying, who've been abandoned and erased. They're supporting you because you fought back, because you won. Take the help, Brielle. You've earned it." So she did. She used the money to pay off Aria's remaining medical debt, to move to a better apartment, to buy a used car so she didn't have to take the bus in winter. Small things that changed everything. But the biggest change came 3 months later. Garrett's trial was fast. With overwhelming evidence and multiple witnesses, his lawyers advised him to take a plea deal. 15 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for at least 12. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for a cold February morning. Brielle almost didn't go, but Bethany Torres, Rowan's lawyer, who'd become her lawyer too, convinced her. "He needs to see you," Bethany said. "He needs to know you're still standing." So Brielle went. The courtroom was smaller than she expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, nothing dramatic or cinematic, just bureaucratic justice grinding forward. Garrett sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit that made him look smaller somehow. His hair needed cutting. His shoulders slumped. He looked human, breakable. When his eyes found hers across the room, she saw something she'd never seen before. Fear. Real, genuine fear. The judge read the charges, the plea agreement, the sentence: 15 years in federal prison, restitution of $14 million to defrauded donors, permanent ban from operating any charitable organization. The gavel came down. It was over. As they led Garrett out, he paused near Brielle's row. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. She blinked. In 3 years, he'd never apologized for anything. "For what?" she asked. "For not seeing what I had until it was gone." Brielle looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. Not hatred, not love, not even pity. Just the absence of feeling that comes when someone stops having power over you. "Goodbye, Garrett." He nodded, and then he was gone. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but Brielle had learned how to navigate them. Brief statement, no questions, professional. "I'm grateful for the justice system and for everyone who supported my family through this difficult time. I'm looking forward to moving on and giving my children the peaceful life they deserve. Thank you." She walked to her car, climbed in, and drove home. The twins were at preschool. She had 3 hours before pickup. She made tea, sat in her new apartment that had heat that worked and windows that locked properly, looked at the life she'd built from ashes, and she cried. Not sad tears, not happy tears, just release. 3 years of holding everything together. 3 years of being strong because she had no choice. She could finally let go. Her phone rang. "Rowan, you okay?" he asked. "Yeah, I think I really am. Good. Because I have something I want to discuss with you." "What?" "Not over the phone. Can you meet me tomorrow? There's something I want to show you." Curiosity sparked. "Okay, where?" "Teterboro Airport." 10 a.m. "An airport? Rowan, what is this about?" "Trust me," he said. And somehow she did. The next morning, Brielle drove to the small private airfield north of the city. Rowan was waiting outside a massive hangar, hands in his pockets, that slight smile on his face. "What are we doing here?" she asked, climbing out of her car. "You once told me you wanted to show your kids what freedom looked like." "I did." "At the diner. When we first met, you said that one day you wanted Jackson and Arya to understand that their mother didn't just survive, she flew." Brielle's heart started pounding. "Rowan." He led her into the hangar. Inside sat a sleek private jet, silver and white, with Sterling Industries painted on the side. But that's not what made her gasp. On the tail was a second logo, the Hayes Foundation for Single Mothers. "What is this?" she whispered. Rowan handed her a folder. Inside was a contract. Partnership agreement. CO Director of Sterling Industries Philanthropic Division. "I've been building a foundation to help single mothers who are exactly where you were 3 years ago. Women who've been abandoned, abused, erased. I have the money and the infrastructure. But I need someone who actually understands their experience. Someone who knows what it's like to choose between rent and formula, between pride and survival." Brielle stared at the contract, at her name printed in official letters. "You want me to run a foundation? I want you to help me build something that actually helps people, instead of just moving money around for tax breaks. Real help. Housing assistance, legal aid, medical coverage, childcare, everything you needed and couldn't find. Rowan, I'm not qualified. I don't have a degree in nonprofit management or social work or anything. You have something better. You have experience, and you have heart." He paused. "Also, the salary is $80,000 a year to start, with benefits, full medical coverage for you and the twins." 80,000. That was more than she'd made in the last 3 years combined. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Say you'll stop punishing yourself for surviving and start helping other women do the same." Tears blurred her vision. Yes. Of course, yes. Rowan smiled. Good. Because I kind of already ordered business cards with your name on them. She laughed through tears. You were that sure? I had faith. There's a difference. He led her up the stairs into the jet. Inside was luxury she'd forgotten existed. Leather seats, polished wood, windows that showed the whole sky. I thought, Rowan said, that maybe today we could take your first flight as co-director. Show you the facility we're building in Wisconsin. Let you see what we're creating. The twins are in preschool. I know. I had my assistant arrange for early pickup. They're on their way here now. What? Right on cue, a car pulled up outside the hangar. The door opened. Dolores stepped out with Jackson and Aria, who immediately started running toward the plane. Mama, Mr. Rowan says we're going on an airplane. Brielle knelt and caught them both. You knew about this? Dolores grinned. Honey, some surprises are worth keeping. Jackson and Aria raced up the stairs into the jet, their excited voices echoing through the cabin. Mama, look at the seats. There's a TV in the ceiling. Can we really fly in this? Brielle looked at Rowan. This is too much. This is what you've earned, he corrected gently. Stop thinking you don't deserve good things. So she stopped thinking and started feeling. The pilot, a calm woman named Captain Anderson, gave the twins a tour of the cockpit. Let them sit in the seats. Showed them the controls. You know, the captain said, I have a daughter your age, and I always tell her that the sky doesn't care if you're rich or poor. It lets everyone who's brave enough fly. Aria looked up with wide eyes. Are we brave, Mama? Brielle pulled her close. Baby, you're the bravest people I know. 30 minutes later, they were airborne. Brielle pressed her face to the window and watched Chicago shrink below them. The towers that had once felt like monuments to her failure now looked small, manageable, just buildings. Jackson and Aria were glued to the opposite windows, noses pressed to glass, watching clouds race past. Mama, we're flying, Jackson shouted. We're really, really flying, Aria echoed, and Brielle realized something. For 3 years, she'd been so focused on survival that she'd forgotten to imagine what came after. But here it was. After, the thing that happens when you refuse to quit. Rowan sat across from her, reading through foundation proposals. He looked up and caught her watching him. What are you thinking? He asked. That I don't know how to do this. Do what? Be happy. I've spent so long fighting that I don't know how to just be. He set down his papers. Then learn. You've got time, and you've got people who want to help you figure it out. Why? The question burst out before she could stop it. Why do you care so much? You barely know me. Rowan was quiet for a moment. Because 3 years ago, when Garrett destroyed my business and my reputation, I wanted to disappear. I wanted to quit, and then I saw a hospital record. Across my desk, a woman with 2 premature babies and no insurance, a man who'd abandoned them. And I thought, if she's still fighting, I can fight too. You saved Aria's life because I inspired you. You saved mine first. You just didn't know it. The weight of that settled over her. The idea that her survival had meant something beyond just her children. That her refusal to quit had rippled outward. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. Thank me by building something amazing with this foundation. I will. I promise. The plane banked left, sunlight streaming through the windows, and Brielle closed her eyes and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate kind that's really just fear in disguise, but real hope. The kind that believes tomorrow might actually be better than today. When they landed back in Chicago 3 hours later, the twins were exhausted and exhilarated. Best day ever, Jackson declared, already half asleep. Best day ever, Aria agreed. Brielle carried them to the car, their heads heavy on her shoulders. Rowan walked her to the parking lot. I'll have the contract sent over next week, but take your time. Read everything. Make sure you're comfortable. I don't need time. I'm sure. Still, read it. I want you to know exactly what you're signing. No more blind trust. She appreciated that more than he knew. As she buckled the twins into their car seats, Jackson mumbled, Mama, are we rich now? Brielle laughed. No, baby, but we're safe, and that's better than rich. Oh, okay. He was asleep before she closed the door. That night, after the twins were in bed, Brielle stood at her window and looked at the city, the same view she'd had from her old studio. But everything looked different now. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to Garrett's contact. She'd never deleted it. Some part of her had held onto it like evidence. Proof that he'd existed. That what happened to her was real. Now she didn't need proof anymore. She deleted the contact. Blocked the number. Erased him as completely as he'd once tried to erase her. And it felt like the final door closing on a chapter she'd never have to read again. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rowan. "You did good today. The twins are lucky to have you." She smiled and typed back, "I'm lucky to have them." And she meant it, because they'd given her a reason to fight when fighting felt impossible. They'd made her strong when she wanted to break. They'd turned her survival into purpose. 6 months later, spring arrived in Chicago with the subtlety of a symphony. The Hayes Foundation officially launched with a ceremony at Sterling Tower. Press coverage, ribbon cutting, politicians giving speeches about helping families in need. But the real work happened in the background. Brielle spent her days meeting with single mothers who reminded her of herself 3 years ago. Frightened, desperate, trying to hold it together with no support. She helped them find housing, legal aid, childcare, medical coverage, all the things she'd needed and couldn't access. "You understand," one woman told her through tears. "Everyone else just sees statistics. You see people." "Because I was you," Brielle replied, "and someone helped me. Now I'm helping you." The foundation grew fast. Donations poured in. Not just money. Time. Resources. Lawyers offering pro bono services. Doctors providing free checkups. People wanting to be part of something real. Rowan watched it all with quiet pride. "You've helped 200 families in 6 months, he told her. "We've helped them. This is your foundation too. No, it has my money, but it has your heart. There's a difference." Jackson and Aria thrived. They'd moved to a townhouse in a safe neighborhood with good schools. They had friends, stability, a mother who wasn't constantly stressed about survival. "Mama, can we get a dog?" Jackson asked one Saturday morning. A dog, the kind of thing normal families with normal lives considered. "Maybe," Brielle said. "Let's see." "That means yes," Aria cheered. They ended up with a rescue mutt named Charlie who was mostly terrier and entirely chaos. But watching her children play with him in their small backyard made every moment of struggle worth it. One evening in late October, almost exactly 1 year after the engagement party that changed everything, Brielle's doorbell rang. It was a courier with a certified letter. She signed for it, her heart sinking. Official letters never brought good news, but when she opened it, her breath caught. It was from Garrett's lawyer. A formal relinquishment of all parental rights. Signed, notarized, final. He was giving up any legal claim to Jackson and Aria. A handwritten note was attached in Garrett's writing. "Brielle, I've had a lot of time to think about what I did, about who I was. Prison has a way of stripping away all the bullshit you tell yourself. I destroyed you because I was too weak to admit I was scared. Scared of being a father, scared of anything I couldn't control. You deserved better. The twins deserved better. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just saying I'm sorry. I'm signing away my rights so you never have to worry about me interfering in their lives. Raise them well. I know you will. Garrett." Brielle read it 3 times, looking for manipulation, for hidden angles, for the catch, but there was none. Just a man who'd finally faced what he'd done. She folded the letter carefully, put it in a box with all the other documents from that chapter of her life. Maybe one day she'd show it to the twins. Maybe she wouldn't. Either way, it was over. She called Rowan. He signed away his rights. "How do you feel?" "Free. Finally, completely free." "Good. You deserve that." "Rowan," she paused. "Thank you for everything. For believing me when no one else did. For standing beside me. For giving me a chance to build something meaningful. You would have built something meaningful with or without me. I just provided the resources. Still, thank you." After they hung up, Brielle made hot chocolate for the twins. They sat together on the couch, Charlie sprawled across their laps, and watched a movie about a princess who saved herself. "Mama," Aria said during a commercial, "when I grow up I want to be like you." "Like me?" "Yeah. Brave and strong and someone who helps people." Brielle's eyes burned with tears. "Baby, you're already all those things." "Really?" "Really." Jackson looked up. I'm brave and strong too, right? The bravest and strongest. He smiled, satisfied, and turned back to the movie. And Brielle sat there, her children warm against her sides, and thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago. That woman had been broken, terrified, certain she couldn't survive. But she had survived. And in surviving, she'd become someone who could help others do the same. The revenge she'd thought she wanted turned out to be the wrong goal. Justice was better. Peace was better. Building something meaningful instead of tearing something down was better. Garrett was in prison, but that's not what gave her closure. Closure came from waking up every day and knowing her children were safe, from helping other women escape the same trap she'd been in, from learning that her worth wasn't determined by who left her, but by who she became after. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hi, my name is Keisha. The Hayes Foundation helped me last month with emergency housing. I just wanted you to know I got a job today, full-time with benefits. I start Monday. Thank you for helping me when I had nothing. You saved my life." Brielle smiled through tears and typed back, "You saved your life. I just reminded you that you could. Congratulations on the job. You've got this." That's what the foundation was really about. Not saving people, but reminding them they could save themselves. Because Brielle had learned the hard way that the world doesn't give you permission to survive. You have to take it. And once you do, once you claim your right to exist and thrive despite everyone who tried to erase you, that's when you become unstoppable. So let me ask you something. If you're still here, still with me, still feeling this story in your chest, I need you to understand what it really means. This isn't just about Brielle Hayes. This is about every woman who's been told she's not enough. Every single mother fighting battles no one sees. Every person who's been underestimated and decided to prove the world wrong. Brielle didn't win because she destroyed Garrett Blackwell. She won because she refused to let his cruelty define her worth. And that's the lesson. That's what I want you to take from this. Your value doesn't come from the people who love you. It comes from loving yourself enough to keep going when everyone else has given up on you. Shame only works on people who believe they have something to be ashamed of. And survival? Survival is the most powerful form of resistance. So if you're in a difficult place right now, if someone has tried to make you disappear, if you were wondering whether you can make it through tomorrow, let Brielle's story be your answer. You can. You will. And one day, you'll look back at this moment and realize it wasn't your ending. It was your beginning. Now I need you to do 3 things for me. First, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This channel is about stories that matter. Stories that remind us what real strength looks like. And I'm just getting started. Second, share this video. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. Because there's a woman out there right now who feels like Brielle did 3 years ago. Alone. Afraid. Convinced she can't make it. Your share might be what saves her. Third, and most important, drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what this story meant to you. Or just say, "I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline," because we're building a community here. A community of people who believe in second chances and first-time courage. Remember, you're not defined by what happened to you. You're defined by what you do next. I'm Mr. Hearthline, and I'll see you in the next story. Now go out there and show the world what survival looks like when it learns to fly.